I'm going to talk a little bit about parents. It won't be long because it would take too long to talk about everything about parents. So, one thing I want to say is that I learned a long time ago how important it is to work with the parents if something comes up that you need to deal with. And for example, um, this was my experience. I was working with a boy. He was 14, and we had a pretty good relationship, and he was very contactful. And one of the things he loved more than anything was to go to the harbor and watch the fishermen. We lived
Sorry.
we lived near the harbor. He lived near the harbor, so it wasn't difficult to do that. It was his passion going to the harbor where the boats pull in and the fishermen and all that. So then, he was a boy who would not go to school. He resisted going to school, and that's why his mother brought him into therapy because she just didn't know what to do. So when I discovered that he loved the harbor so much, I said to the mother, um, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write a note, give him permission to go to the harbor once a week and spend his time there, and then tell you what he learned or what he saw after that. She said, I can't do that. No, no, no way I can do that. And I know she worked, and I thought maybe it had something to do with her working and not being home. But that wasn't it. She said, I can't let him do something like that and give him permission to do that. I mean, he's giving me so much trouble. Why should I give him something so nice that he wants? No, I can't do that. And at that time, I just accepted that she could do that. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I think it would be a good idea. Actually, I've done that with my own children. They always had a mental health day they could choose, even if it was once a week. Anyway, but she wouldn't. So, and she also ended the therapy. I guess she figured this crazy lady, I'm going to take him out of therapy. She did. A couple of months later, she called me up. She said, oh, I wish I had listened to you. I wish I had let him go to the harbor once a week. I'm so sorry. I said, what's going on? She said, well, this week, the other day, he hung himself. And I didn't even know he was that desperate, but he hung himself and he's no longer with me. So that was really sad. I mean, I was so sad. And and she said, if I had only listened to you. So what did that teach me besides grief? What did that teach me? It taught me that I should have worked with her. The minute she said I can't do that, I should have I really think I should have said, why don't you come in next time yourself and we'll do some stuff. She would have come. I know she would have, because in other times she had come talk about her son. So I could have worked with her about her resistance to doing what I'd asked her to do. It was very sad, and I've never forgotten to this day. And that was many, many years ago, actually, when I first started working. And so I guess the message of this is when you see that a parent is resistant, make an appointment, get to know the parent, have the parent come in, talk to them about their resistance. What are they afraid of? What do they worry about doing whatever you ask them? There have been times when I've asked parents to not push the homework to stop with their children because it causes lots of fights. And that's something we've talked about a lot. Parents then admit that the reason they don't can't let the homework go is that they're afraid the child will get bad grades. And if the child gets bad grades, it reflects on them, on their parenting. So I've had, it's something else to deal with. It's very difficult for parents to let, especially adolescents, let their adolescent children take responsibility for their own work and perhaps fail. Anyway, that's one aspect. I've had other situations like that. For example, I'll give you another little story. I had a family. This was a single mother, and she had three children. And the older boy had a father. They were not together. They were divorced. And the father of that older boy spent almost every weekend with him. And at that time, they just had the older boy and then a little girl. Boy was about, I don't remember, 12. Girl was about 9. And they went off together. Uh, they went off together almost every weekend. And the mother would say to the girl, "Oh, we girls now have our time. We're going to have our fun. We girls." Anyway, one day she said to me that she didn't know what to do, but she had a little problem because the father of the boy would not let the little girl join them when he did things with the boy. He said, "I'm not her father. I don't want her to come." And he had some feelings about doing that, which we could work with a little bit. He did come in and talked about that and all that. Anyway, I found out that she had never told the little girl that the boy's father was not her.
Just because this is in the video. Sorry.
And so I said to her, "You have to tell your daughter that he's not her father." And she said, I can't do that. It'll just be so upsetting. Oh, I just can't do it. So she had a younger child and she I said, "I want you to come in. We'll do it together in the session." So she came in with her two older children and they were surprised that their mother had something to tell them. And they listened very well. And she told them, "Your father is not, Jimmy's father is not your father." So immediately the little girl said, "You mean I have my own father? I have a different father. I have my own father." And she didn't know what to say to her. So and she said, "Yes." And she, "Where is he? What's his name? Where does he live?" And she said, "I don't know. It was somebody I met um, once, and we connected, and I never saw him again." And that was kind of sad, but The boy, meanwhile, who was 12, started yelling and crying, "You lied to us! You lied to us!" And crying and yelling that. And eventually, everybody calmed down and we began to talk about it. And that was so helpful. After that, it was very helpful. And so as I've always said, you must tell the truth to a child. And sometimes the parent has trouble to do it, so you offer to do it in a session. I've done it several times in that kind of a situation. And it's very important because later, when at some point the person finds out, oh my God, it's much worse than than the time than this time. So those are just two little stories. One of the things that I've always done with parents, I give them a handout that I make explaining the kind of work we do, that we use all these projective techniques and why. And it's very helpful because the parent needs to know what we're doing. When the child comes home, well, I played with clay or I play, and the parent is thinking, I spend this money for therapy and they're playing with clay. And so it's really important that they know what you're doing and uh, explain to, explaining to them in some way how you use different techniques, why you're using them, because they're such powerful projections. And something of the inner life of the child definitely comes out. And anyway, that's a little, there's just so many ways of dealing with working with parents. Imagine if you're the parent, many of you, most of you are, I imagine, and your child was in therapy. Wouldn't you want to know what they were doing? Wouldn't you want to know, feel some support from the therapist in terms of what's going on in your life? It's very, really important to make that connection with the parent. I used to see the parents when I saw children. I'd see the parents once a month, and one of my famous handouts sayings is, "I don't fix kids," because I would say, "Well, what is it that you want for your child to coming here?" "Well, I want you to fix them." Well, I would say, "I don't fix kids." And then I would say, "But this is what I do. I do," and I always had their attention the minute I said that. And I'd say, "Well, it seems to me that depend because of what's going on in your family now, uh, I say to the child, you probably don't feel too happy, even if you don't agree with me. That's what I see." And I would turn to the parent and say, "One of the things I do is try to help your child feel happier in life." And I would imagine, I say to the child, you don't feel good about yourself. Some things are going on that make you not feel good about yourself. And the other thing I do, say to the parent, is try to help your child feel better about himself or herself. And this is one way I start. And I might say, in the way that we do it is, and I'll describe a little bit of what we do. So those are just a couple of things about parents. Uh, Parents need to be involved, and sometimes the parents are doing things that that exacerbate the bad stuff that's going on. And maybe they need some support to change. In situations like that, you need to have them come in for a session or two or three or whatever. And if they're resistant to that, you can at first you can just kind of go with the resistance and then have them come in. In spite of that, by appealing to their responsibility as a parent. But if they don't, you can still work with the child. I always say that if I can work with the child, I will. I mean, some people feel that if you can't work with the family and the parents, that there's no point working with the child. I've never felt that way. I'm always grateful when the parents bring the child into therapy. And I've seen many children who don't, who are foster children who don't live with their families, their parents anyway. I've seen children who don't have parents. Uh, I mean, there are many good reasons why some of the parents could not come in and be involved. But I will work with the child if that somebody's bringing them. Uh, okay, so that's about it for today.
Okay. There's a question, Violet, if you don't mind.
No, for sure.
Okay. Patrick?
Yes.
Patrick doesn't have the question, but he was going to read the question.
Uh,
Oh, I didn't know that. Is the
Oh,
question?
from Sarah from Malta.
Oh, okay. Definitely important for children to be aware of the truth. My only concern is, would you worry about having a parent share difficult news to a child in session with you and the possible negative impact it might have on the therapeutic relationship versus coaching the parent separately and having them share the difficult news at home and you continue to work with the child individually in their sessions?
yeah, if it's, I never tell the children the truth. That's not my role. I encourage the parent has to do that if it's a family situation, and I may have to work with that family or a parent to get them to understand they must tell the truth of what's going on. Uh, I have other stuff. I mean, where a person found out when they were an adult that their mother wasn't their mother, but their aunt was their mother, and they had such a difficult time as a child, because of this. And if they had been told the truth early, it might have been difficult at that time, but it would have been a lot better for the person to know the truth. So, as I say, I don't do the telling. I want the parent has to do the telling. I don't. That's not my role or job.
But I'm wondering if what also Sarah meant was maybe if you are in the room with while the parent is saying such difficult news, whether it affects your being able to work with that, the child sees you differently or
Uh,
has that kind of feeling of the like this was a almost a trauma that you become then associated with. I'm guessing that's part of what Sarah's asking about, kind of hurting having a negative impact on the therapeutic relationship.
the reason I'd be there is because otherwise they have difficulty telling the child. And I say, well, then let's do it in a session. I've never had a negative reaction that I know of or I'm aware of by the children when this has happened. And how I deal with it after the disclosure makes a lot of difference. Helping the
Okay.
child. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Violet.
You're welcome.
Very much appreciated.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay. I'll say it's our pleasure for sure.